On the bustling streets of downtown Chicago, what started as a brutal act of intimidation transformed into one of the most extraordinary undercover operations in law enforcement history. When the notorious Savage Souls motorcycle gang decided to vandalize an ordinary yellow taxi, they never expected to target James Conner, a Secret Service operative with 15 years of covert experience, who would prove that the most dangerous predators often hide in plain sight. This is the remarkable story of how one cab driver's patience and cunning exposed a criminal empire that stretched from Chicago's streets to international shores. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn wind whipped between the skyscrapers as James Conner adjusted his rear-view mirror, his weathered hands moving with practiced precision. 15 years behind the wheel of his taxi had taught him to notice things others missed: the suspicious meetings in back alleys, the patterns of criminal activity that emerged in the quiet hours before dawn. But tonight felt different. Unit 7, be advised of increased gang activity near River North. Sarah's voice crackled through his hidden earpiece. Savage Souls are getting bold. James tapped his steering wheel twice, their signal for message received. The leather of his driving gloves concealed calluses earned not from driving, but from years of weapons training. Copy that. Running my usual route. A group of motorcycles thundered past his taxi, their riders wearing the distinctive patches of the Savage Souls MC. James counted 6 bikes, led by a massive chopper with chrome skulls mounted on its handlebars. Victor, the Ghost, Petrov's signature ride. Target confirmed, James murmured into his concealed mic. Ghost is mobile. Sarah's response was immediate. Maintain distance. We're not ready to move yet. The bikers pulled into Tommy's bar, their usual hangout. James circled the block, picking up a fare. An elderly woman headed to Lincoln Park. As he drove, his trained eyes noted the increasing number of Savage Souls members converging on the area. Something big is happening tonight, the woman commented, watching another group of bikers roar past. Those hooligans are everywhere lately. James nodded, playing his role. Been seeing more of them around. Bad for business. After dropping off his fare, James positioned his taxi strategically across from Tommy's. The bar's neon signs cast an eerie red glow across the wet pavement. Through the windows, he could see Petrov holding court, surrounded by his lieutenants. "You seeing this?" James whispered. "Full leadership meeting." "Logged and recorded," Sarah confirmed. "But we need more. 3 months of surveillance, and we still can't connect them to the international shipments." A sharp rap on his window interrupted their conversation. Frank Razor Thompson, Petrov's second-in-command, stood there grinning maliciously. "Hey, taxi man, this spot's taken." James looked up, maintaining his cover. "Just waiting for a fare, sir. No trouble." "No, you're making trouble by being here." Razor's smile disappeared. "This is Savage Souls territory." More bikers surrounded the taxi, their leather jackets creaking as they moved. James counted 12 men, all armed with chains and pipes. His training screamed at him to react, but he held his position. "I'll move along," James said, reaching for the gear shift. Razor's hand shot through the open window, grabbing James's collar. "Too late for that. Boys, let's show this taxi man what happens when you don't respect our territory." The first strike shattered his rear window. Glass rained down as more blows followed, the bikers laughing as they systematically destroyed his cab. James fought every instinct to fight back, instead playing the role of a terrified driver. "Please," he begged, knowing every word was being recorded. "I didn't know." Petrov emerged from the bar, watching the scene with cold amusement. "Let him go," he commanded after a few minutes. "He's learned his lesson." As the biker stepped back, Razor leaned in close to James's window. Next time we see your cab around here, we won't be so gentle. James slumped in his seat, appearing defeated as the gang returned to the bar. Only when they were gone did he allow himself a small smile. His hidden cameras had captured everything: faces, names, gang affiliations. More importantly, he'd seen something in the bar behind them. Crates being moved into the basement, bearing the same markings as recent shipments of illegal weapons from Eastern Europe. "Tell me you got all that," he whispered. Sarah's voice was tight with excitement. "Every second. James, those crates, they match the shipments from the port. This could be our connection." "Not could be. Is." James started his damaged taxi, carefully pulling away from the curb. "They're getting sloppy. Petrov's running his whole operation right out of that bar's basement. Head back to base. We need to plan our next move." As James drove through the darkened streets, his mind raced with possibilities. The Savage Souls had just handed him exactly what he needed: a reason to be anywhere in their territory. After all, what could be more natural than a taxi driver seeking revenge after being attacked? His phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chen. Port Authority spotted 3 more shipping containers with those markings. Whatever they're planning, it's big. James smiled grimly. After months of patient surveillance, the pieces were finally falling into place. The Savage Souls thought they had just taught a simple taxi driver a lesson. Instead, they'd given a Secret Service operative everything he needed to begin dismantling their empire. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, as his damaged taxi limped through Chicago's streets, James Connor allowed himself to savor the moment when his targets had finally made their first crucial mistake. The fluorescent lights of the Secret Service operations room cast harsh shadows across the damaged photos spread on the table. James stood before a wall of surveillance images, his reflection ghosting across faces of known Savage Souls members. "These aren't just street thugs." James pointed to a series of photos showing Petrov meeting with suited figures in expensive cars. "They've got connections, high ones." Sarah Martinez leaned forward, her dark hair falling across her face as she studied the images. "Our sources confirm 3 shipments arrived last week, all passed customs without inspection." "Someone's being paid off," Detective Chen added, his coffee growing cold beside him. "Port Authority, Customs, maybe even local PD." James traced a line between the photos, connecting faces to locations. "The attack on my cab wasn't random. They're clearing their territory, pushing out witnesses, and giving you the perfect cover to push back," Sarah noted. "How's the taxi?" "Insurance adjuster comes tomorrow. Omar's body shop will handle the repairs." Chen's eyebrows rose. "Omar Washington? The guy who runs that place in South Loop?" "He's been my eyes and ears in the automotive world for years," James explained. "Most of the Savage Souls bikes go through his shop. They trust him." Sarah pulled up footage from the attack on a nearby screen. Petrov seemed almost pleased when it happened, like he wanted an audience. "He's sending a message." James watched the footage of his cab being vandalized. Establishing dominance over new territory? But why now? Why that location? The door opened as Dr. Emily Parker entered, carrying medical supplies. "Because you were getting too close," she said, setting down her bag. "Let me check those cuts from the glass." As Emily cleaned the small lacerations on James's arms, Sarah replayed the footage. "Look at the crates in the background. Same markings as the shipments from Kiev." "Ukrainian arms dealers," Chen muttered. "Working with a Chicago biker gang. It doesn't add up." James winced as Emily applied antiseptic. "Unless someone bigger is pulling the strings. Petrov's smart, but international weapons trafficking? That's above his pay grade." "We've got movement," Sarah suddenly announced, pointing to a live feed. "Razor just pulled up to Tommy's with 3 new bikes." James stood, rolling down his sleeves. "Time to put our plan in motion. Omar's expecting me." "James," Sarah's voice stopped him at the door. "Be careful." If they spot any of our surveillance equipment during the repairs, they won't, he assured her. Omar's the best at what he does. The drive to Omar's shop took James through the heart of Savage Souls territory. Every corner seemed to hold another leather-clad figure. Every bar echoed with the rumble of motorcycles. He pulled his damaged taxi into the shop's bay, where Omar Washington waited. "Damn, they did a number on you," Omar whistled, examining the smashed windows. "Can you fix it?" Omar ran his hand along the dented hood. "Sure can. But that's not why you're here, is it?" James glanced around the empty shop. Razor Thompson, his crew. What are they moving through Tommy's? Man, you know I can't. 3 days ago, a shipment came in from Kiev. Today they're expanding territory, getting aggressive. Something's coming, Omar. Something big. Omar wiped his hands on a rag, considering. Razor's been bragging. Says they've got friends in high places now. Real high. Names? Nothing solid. But there's a woman. Comes by in a city car, tinted windows. They clear out the bar when she arrives. James filed away the information. Any chance of getting my cab fixed by tomorrow night? For you? Yeah, but James? Omar lowered his voice. Watch yourself. These guys, they're different lately. Like they're untouchable. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Back in his temporary replacement taxi, James radioed Sarah. We need to ID every female city official who might have access to customs records. Already on it. Chen's contact at City Hall sent over a list of possibilities. James pulled into traffic, his mind racing. Have him focus on anyone with connections to Eastern Europe. The weapons have to be coming through official channels. What's your next move? Tonight, I'm just a taxi driver getting his cab fixed. James watched a group of savage souls roll past. Tomorrow? Tomorrow we start pushing back. The evening passed slowly as James maintained his cover, picking up fares and gradually working his way closer to Tommy's bar. Each pass revealed new details, guard patterns, delivery schedules, the steady stream of bikes coming and going. Near midnight, his radio crackled. James, Sarah's voice was urgent. Chen just sent over surveillance footage from the port. You need to see this. On my way. James checked his mirrors. But Sarah, get Emily back in. Something tells me we're going to need a medical expert for what's coming next. As he drove toward the operations center, James couldn't shake the feeling that they'd only scratched the surface. The savage souls were just one piece of a larger puzzle, and somewhere in Chicago's shadowy underworld, someone was watching their every move. His phone buzzed with a text from Omar. City car just pulled up to Tommy's. Black Lexus, diplomatic plates. James smiled grimly. The pieces were falling into place faster than expected. Tomorrow, his repaired taxi would return to the streets, and with it, the next phase of their operation would begin. The savage souls thought they'd terrorized a simple cab driver. Soon they'd learn just how wrong they were. Omar's garage buzzed with activity as James approached his newly repaired taxi. The yellow paint gleamed under the fluorescent lights, all traces of the savage soul's attack erased. But beneath the pristine exterior, the cab now held an arsenal of surveillance equipment, carefully concealed within its frame. Had to replace the entire back window, Omar explained, wiping grease from his hands. But I added a few special features. Bulletproof glass, reinforced doors. Should help if they try again. You sure they won't notice? Please, Omar scoffed. I've been modifying their bikes for years. Trust me, it'll pass inspection. James ran his hand along the hood, feeling the subtle differences. Any visitors while you were working? Razor stopped by this morning, asked about you. I told him you were considering selling the cab, getting out of the business. Perfect. That should... James stopped as his phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Isabella Romano, City Transportation Commissioner. Multiple trips to Kiev last month. Everything okay? Omar asked. Better than okay. We've got a name. James drove his restored taxi through the afternoon traffic, each turn bringing him closer to Tommy's bar. The place looked different in daylight, less threatening, more revealing. He could see the security cameras now, the subtle signs of fortification. His earpiece crackled. Target spotted, Sarah's voice reported. Romano just left City Hall heading your way. Copy that. Chen in position? 2 blocks south with backup. Remember, we need solid evidence of the connection. James parked across from Tommy's, pretending to check his phone. Right on schedule, a black Lexus with diplomatic plates pulled up. Isabella Romano stepped out, her designer suit a stark contrast to the bikers lounging nearby. Well, well, James murmured, activating his hidden cameras. The commissioner herself. Romano disappeared inside Tommy's. Minutes later, Petrov arrived on his chrome skull-adorned chopper, followed by 3 SUVs with tinted windows. You seeing this? James whispered. Got it, Sarah confirmed. Those SUVs match the ones from the port security footage. Through Tommy's windows, James could see Romano and Petrov in deep conversation. His directional microphone picked up fragments. Shipment, tomorrow night, Dock 7. Suddenly, Razor emerged from the bar, scanning the street. His eyes locked onto James's taxi. You've got trouble, Sarah warned. Razor approached, flanked by 2 other bikers. James lowered his window, heart steady despite the tension. Thought Omar said you were selling this heap. Razor sneered. Changed my mind, James replied calmly. Figure I've got too much history in this cab to let it go. History? Razor leaned closer. Like the other night? Just trying to make a living. There's easier ways to make money. Razor's tone shifted. Ways that don't get your windows smashed. James feigned interest. What kind of ways? Maybe we got some packages need delivering. Cash only, no questions asked. Interested? Could be. James acted hesitant. Depends on the pay. Razor grinned. Come by tomorrow night. We'll talk business. As the bikers walked away, Sarah's voice filled James's ear. Did we just get invited to their smuggling operation? Better. James watched Romano exit Tommy's, envelope in hand. We got proof they're recruiting civilian drivers. Back at the operations center, the team reviewed the day's intelligence. Photos of Romano meeting Petrov covered one wall, while financial records filled another. Romano's authorized every suspicious shipment from Kiev, Chen reported. Customs, transportation, storage, she's their inside woman. Emily studied the surveillance photos. Those envelopes she carries, they're too thin for cash. Documents, Sarah suggested. Customs declarations, shipping manifests. Or proof of payment, James added. Either way, tomorrow night's shipment is our chance to catch them all. It's risky, Sarah warned. If they search your cab, they won't, James assured her. They're desperate for civilian drivers. Too many law enforcement stops on their own vehicles. Chen's phone buzzed. Port Authority confirms that 3 containers arriving tomorrow night, Dock 7. Perfect timing, James smiled. Just when they've invited their new taxi driver to join their operation. As the team finalized their plans, James couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Sarah, run a check on Romano's international travel. Not just Kiev, anywhere in Eastern Europe. Why? Something Razor said about packages. I think the weapons are just the beginning. Hours later, Sarah's research confirmed James's suspicions. Romano's travel records showed regular trips to various Eastern European cities, always coinciding with suspicious shipments through Chicago's port. James, Sarah called him as he prepared to leave. Romano's not just moving weapons. According to these manifests, some of those containers are refrigerated. Human trafficking, James realized. The weapons are just cover for something worse. His taxi rolled through Chicago's darkening streets, each mile bringing him closer to tomorrow night's confrontation. The savage souls thought they were recruiting a desperate cab driver. Instead, they were about to learn the true cost of their crimes. Near midnight, James parked outside his apartment, mind racing with plans. His phone lit up with a final message from Sarah. "Be careful tomorrow. These people, they're not just criminals, they're monsters." James touched the American flag hanging from his mirror, a reminder of everything he'd sworn to protect. Tomorrow would change everything. But tonight, he was still just a taxi driver, waiting for his next fare in a city full of secrets. Dock 7 loomed in the pre-dawn darkness, its massive crane silhouetted against Chicago's distant skyline. James sat in his taxi, watching workers prepare for the morning shift. His hidden cameras recorded everything while Sarah's voice provided updates through his earpiece. "Container ship Victor's Pride just cleared the harbor," she reported. 3 refrigerated units marked as agricultural products. "Agricultural products that breathe," James muttered, remembering similar cases from his past. A movement caught his eye, Razor Thompson's distinctive bike approaching through the morning mist. The biker pulled alongside James's taxi, his chrome pipes still pinging from the ride. "Follow me," he ordered. "Boss wants to check you out before tonight." James trailed Razor's bike through the maze of shipping containers, noting security camera positions and guard rotations. They stopped at a nondescript warehouse, its windows dark despite the early hour. Inside, Viktor Petrov sat behind a makeshift desk, cleaning his nails with a hunting knife. Isabella Romano stood nearby, her expensive suit incongruous in the dusty space. "So," Petrov's accent was thicker up close. "This is the taxi man who doesn't know when to quit. Just trying to survive." James played his role perfectly. "Your message was pretty clear the other night. And yet here you are." Romano stepped forward, studying him. "Either very brave or very stupid." "Neither," James shrugged. "Just practical. Razor said you pay well for deliveries." Petrov laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Smart man, but trust requires proof. Tonight you make 1 delivery. Small package, good money. You do well, maybe more work follows." "What kind of package?" "The kind you don't ask about," Razor growled. Romano pulled out a phone, showing James a photo. "Pick up here, deliver there. $10,000. Simple. Unless cops stop you," Petrov added. "Then things get complicated." James studied the photo, memorizing the locations. "No cops, no questions, just driving." "Good." Petrov stood, towering over his desk. "One more thing. Your cab, we need to check it." James's heart rate stayed steady as Razor and another biker inspected his taxi. Sarah's voice whispered reassurance. "The equipment's undetectable." Omar made sure. After 10 tense minutes, Razor gave the all clear. James could see the surprise on Romano's face. She'd clearly expected to find something. "Tonight then." Petrov dismissed him. "Don't be late." Back in the operations center, the team reviewed James's footage. Chen pointed to Romano's phone screen, frozen in high resolution. "That first address, it's a known safe house for trafficking victims." "And the delivery location?" Sarah enhanced the image. "Warehouse district." James recognized it. "Near where they attacked my cab." Emily spread out medical reports from similar cases. "If they're moving people in refrigerated containers, we have hours at most once they're sealed." "Then we move tonight," James decided. "When I make the pickup, we'll have proof of their entire operation." Sarah zoomed in on dock surveillance feeds. 3 containers probably divided between multiple drivers. We'll need to track all of them. "Already handled." Chen held up a tablet. "Port authorities placing GPS trackers during routine inspection." As they finalized details, James noticed Emily studying Romano's file. Something wrong? Her medical license, Emily frowned. Before becoming commissioner, she specialized in transplant surgery. The implications hit them all at once. Sarah voiced it first. They're not just trafficking people for labor or exploitation. They're harvesting organs, James finished grimly. The refrigerated containers, the medical background, the Eastern European connections, it all fits. Chen swore softly. This is bigger than we thought. We need federal backup. No time. James checked his watch. That ship's already docking. If we wait for bureaucracy, people die. Sarah pulled up building schematics for the safe house and warehouse. We'll have tactical teams in position, but you'll be on your own inside. Just like always. James managed a small smile. As evening approached, James prepared his taxi for the night ahead. Hidden cameras checked, transmitters tested, weapons secured under his seat. Omar had added one final touch, a custom compartment that could hide a person. Or evidence. Omar patted the hidden panel. Just don't scratch my paint job. James's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Your fare awaits. Don't disappoint us. Sarah's voice was tight with concern. Tactical teams are in position. Remember, we need concrete evidence before moving in. Copy that. James started his engine. Time to see what's really in those containers. As his taxi merged into Chicago's evening traffic, James thought about all the victims waiting in those refrigerated boxes. Tonight, the savage souls would learn that some taxi drivers do more than just give rides. Some deliver justice. Red brake lights reflected off wet pavement as James's taxi approached the safe house. The building looked abandoned, its windows dark except for a faint glow from the basement. Two Savage Souls members guarded the entrance, their bikes parked in shadows. Movement inside. Sarah's voice was tense in his ear. Thermal imaging shows at least 6 people in the basement. James pulled to the curb, keeping his engine running. Razor emerged from the darkness, cigarette smoke curling around his face. Right on time, taxi man. Ready for your first real fare? Just point me where to go. Razor opened the taxi's back door. A young woman stumbled out of the building, supported by another biker. Her eyes were glassy, movements uncoordinated. They've drugged her, Emily's voice confirmed through the earpiece. Probably ketamine or something similar. Special package, Razor smirked. Handle with care. James watched through his mirror as they placed the woman in his back seat. Her wrists bore marks from restraints, her expensive clothes wrinkled and stained. Address is programmed in your GPS. Razor handed over a burner phone. No stops, no detours. We're watching. As James pulled away, Sarah's voice crackled. Target vehicle moving, multiple followers on bikes. The woman in the back seat stirred slightly. Through his camera feed, James could see her fighting the drugs, trying to focus. Help, she whispered in accented English. Please. Stay calm, James replied softly. You're safe now. Chen, he subvocalized into his mic. Run facial recognition. We need to know who she is. The streets grew emptier as they approached the warehouse district. 2 motorcycles shadowed the taxi, maintaining distance. James's GPS directed him toward a loading dock where several SUVs waited. James, Sarah's urgency cut through the night. She's Alexandra Kovac, daughter of a Ukrainian diplomat, reported missing 3 days ago. The pieces clicked into place. They're not just targeting random victims, they're choosing high-value targets. For maximum profit, Chen added. Organs from healthy, young victims fetch higher prices. The warehouse loomed ahead, its metal doors rising automatically as James approached. Inside, he could see medical equipment gleaming under harsh lights. Isabella Romano stood waiting, dressed in surgical scrubs. Target confirmed, Sarah reported. Tactical teams in position. Not yet, James cautioned. We need to see the whole operation. Romano approached the taxi as James parked. She checked Alexandra's pulse, nodding with professional satisfaction. Good. The sedation held. Get her inside. Two men in medical uniforms moved to transfer Alexandra from the taxi. James caught a glimpse of surgical tables beyond the warehouse doors. The container ship arrives in 2 hours. Romano checked her watch. We need her prepped and ready. For what? James asked, maintaining his cover. Romano's smile was cold. Your next delivery, driver. The real merchandise. A commotion outside drew their attention. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. We've got company, Razor burst in. Someone talked. Clean this place, Romano ordered. Now! James watched as they scrambled to hide evidence, his hidden cameras capturing everything. Alexandra lay forgotten on a gurney as the medical team rushed to pack their equipment. This is our chance, Sarah urged. Tactical teams ready on your mark. But before James could respond, a new voice cut through his earpiece. Petrov's voice, from a different radio channel they were monitoring. Kill the driver. He brought them here. James dove as the first shots rang out. Glass shattered as bullets tore through his taxi's reinforced windows. He rolled behind a concrete pillar, drawing his concealed weapon. Moving in, Chen's voice competed with gunfire. Hold position. Through the chaos, James spotted Romano rushing Alexandra toward a back exit. More bikes roared in the distance, reinforcements coming. They're not taking her, James growled, moving through the shadows. Sarah's voice was steady. 3 minutes to tactical support. James, wait for... But James was already moving, years of training taking over. The warehouse erupted into a war zone as police breached the main entrance. Somewhere in the chaos, a voice shouted about the other safe houses, other victims waiting for transport. This wasn't just about one rescue anymore. Every second counted for others trapped in refrigerated containers, marked for harvest. As James pursued Romano through the warehouse's maze of corridors, he knew the night's real battle was just beginning. Sarah, he whispered, ducking under pipework, tell Chen to hit every location we've identified. Hit them all now. Behind him, the sound of motorcycles grew louder. The savage souls were coming in force, determined to protect their operation. But they were about to learn that they'd chosen the wrong taxi driver to trust with their secrets. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, Isabella Romano ran with proof of an international organ trafficking ring, proof James intended to recover, no matter the cost. Gunfire echoed through steel corridors as James pursued Romano deeper into the warehouse complex. Alexandra's unconscious form slowed Romano's escape, giving James an advantage. Behind them, chaos erupted as police engaged the savage souls in the main warehouse. Status on the other locations, James demanded, pressing against a wall as bullets sparked nearby. Chen's team's hitting them now, Sarah reported. 4 more safe houses identified, at least 20 potential victims. Romano's voice carried from around the corner. Petrov, where's my extraction? James activated his body camera, documenting everything. The corridor opened into a massive storage area filled with medical equipment. Romano had propped Alexandra against a wall while she frantically worked at a computer terminal. Deleting evidence? James called out, weapon raised. It won't help. You don't understand. Romano's fingers flew across the keyboard. This is bigger than you know, bigger than all of us. Try me. A bitter laugh escaped her. You think Petrov runs this? The savage souls are just muscle. There are people above them, above me, powerful people who make the real decisions. Names, James demanded, moving closer. Give me names. They'll kill me. Romano's voice cracked, like they killed the others who talked. Motorcycles roared closer. Romano's eyes darted to a side exit. James recognized the look of desperate calculation in her face. Sarah, he sub-vocalized. She's going to run. Letter, Sarah replied. Tactical team in position outside that exit. Romano made her move, lunging toward the door. James let her go, focusing instead on reaching Alexandra. The young woman's pulse was steady, but her skin felt cold. Emily, I need... An explosion rocked the building. Through his earpiece, James heard Chen shouting, "They're using heavy weapons, RPGs at the north entrance." Petrov's not letting this place fall, Sarah realized. They're going to destroy everything. James lifted Alexandra, heading for his pre-planned escape route. Romano? In custody, Sarah confirmed. But James, she's laughing. Another explosion shook the walls. James ran through smoke-filled corridors, Alexandra secure in his arms. His taxi would be useless now, but Omar had prepared a backup vehicle in a nearby alley. Chen, report on the other locations. 2 safe houses secured. Chen's voice competed with sirens. Multiple arrests. But James, the victims we found, some are already prepped for surgery. Get them out. If Petrov's willing to bomb this place, already moving. But we've got another problem. Harbor Patrol reports movement at Dock 7. The containers are being loaded onto trucks. James reached the alley, finding the backup car waiting. As he secured Alexandra in the back seat, a new voice crackled through his earpiece, an intercept from Petrov's channel. Burn it all, Petrov ordered. Every location. Leave nothing. Sarah's voice turned urgent. Multiple fires reported. They're torching the safe houses. With victims inside? James started the car, tires squealing as he headed toward the harbor. Fire crews en route, but... Static drowned her words as another explosion lit up the night sky. In his rearview mirror, James saw the warehouse burning, black smoke billowing into the darkness. The savage souls were covering their tracks with fire and blood. Sarah, coordinate with fire departments. Chen, secure those crime scenes. I'm going after the containers. James, wait! Emily cut in. Alexandra's blood work just came back. The sedative they used, it's not just for keeping her quiet. It's preserving her organs. They're prepping all their victims this way. The implications hit him hard. Every minute those containers remained in Savage Soul's control meant more lives at risk. But Petrov's words about powerful people above him suggested this went beyond Chicago's streets. His phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. You should have stayed a taxi driver. Through the smoke-filled streets, James could hear more explosions. The Savage Souls weren't just destroying evidence. They were declaring war. But they'd forgotten the first rule of warfare. Never underestimate your enemy. Sarah. James's voice was steel as he raced toward the harbor. Get me everything on Romano's contacts. Business associates, political connections, anyone who might be part of this. Already on it. But James? That message you just received, it came from inside the federal building. The night sky reflected red with distant fires as James processed this revelation. The conspiracy reached higher than they'd imagined, into the very institutions meant to prevent such crimes. But tonight, those shadowy figures would learn why targeting an undercover operative was their biggest mistake. Starting with Petrov and his Savage Souls, James would dismantle their entire operation, no matter how high it reached. The harbor's security lights cast long shadows across shipping containers as James approached Dock 7. Alexandra was safe in a secure medical facility, but dozens more victims waited in refrigerated boxes, marked for harvest. Through night vision surveillance, James counted 8 armed Savage Souls members supervising the loading operations. Container numbers confirmed. Sarah's voice was grim. 3 units, all active refrigeration. Temperatures consistent with organ preservation. Targets? James positioned himself behind a stack of empty containers. 4 trucks, heavily modified. Petrov's on site, coordinating personally. James checked his weapon, remembering Romano's words about higher powers. Status on our federal building leak? Signal traced to the Organized Crime Division. Sarah reported. Chen's running background checks on every agent. A crane whirred to life, lifting the first container. James watched through his scope as Petrov directed operations, the biker leader's chrome skull rings glinting under security lights. James, Emily's voice cut in. Preliminary reports from the safe houses they're using military-grade organ preservation protocols. This isn't street-level crime. This is state-sponsored, James finished. Someone's using the savage souls as cover for government-sanctioned organ harvesting. Movement caught his attention. A black SUV with diplomatic plates pulled onto the dock. Two men in suits emerged, speaking rapidly in Ukrainian. Getting this? James adjusted his directional microphone. Recording, Sarah confirmed. Translator standing by. Petrov approached the diplomats, exchanging documents. James zoomed in with his camera, capturing every detail. The larger diplomat checked his phone, frowning. Problems at other locations, the man said in heavily accented English. Police raids. This cargo must move now. My men are handling it, Petrov assured him. The evidence burns as we speak. And the taxi driver? Petrov's laugh was cold. Dead in the warehouse fire along with any proof. Sarah, James whispered. Run facial recognition on our diplomatic friends. Already processing. James, the second man, matches intelligence files. Viktor Kozlov, former Ukrainian military intelligence, now working private sector. Private sector meaning organ trafficking. Among other things, his company, Global Medical Solutions, has contracts with 12 countries. The crane lowered another container onto a waiting truck. James could hear the refrigeration units humming temperature-controlled coffins for unwilling donors. Time to end this. James moved forward, staying in shadows. Chen, status on harbor backup? 5 minutes out. Coast Guard standing by. James reached the first truck undetected. The driver sat in the cab, monitoring temperature gauges. Through the trailer's small window, James glimpsed medical equipment, surgical tables bolted to the floor. Mobile operating rooms, Emily realized, reviewing his footage. They're not just transporting victims, they're harvesting organs during transit. The revelation hit James hard. These weren't just criminals, they were monsters in human form. His finger tightened on his trigger. Steady, Sarah cautioned. We need them all. A commotion erupted near the third container. One of the refrigeration units had failed, its temperature rising rapidly. Petrov rushed forward, barking orders in Ukrainian and English. Open it, he commanded. Check the merchandise. James's night vision showed heat signatures inside people packed together, still alive. As the container doors swung open, he saw dozens of faces, all young, all terrified. Now, he transmitted. Hit them now. Police sirens wailed as tactical teams converged on the dock. The water erupted with Coast Guard vessels, spotlights painting the scene in harsh white light. But Petrov and the diplomats were already moving, heading for their vehicles. They're not escaping. James emerged from cover, weapon raised. Federal agent, freeze! Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. The savage souls opened up with automatic weapons, forcing James behind a container. Through his earpiece, he heard Sarah coordinating the response. Target vehicles identified. All units. An explosion cut her off as one of the trucks detonated, sending shrapnel flying. James rolled, coming up firing. His first shots took down 2 bikers. The diplomats reached their SUV, but Coast Guard units were blocking the dock's exit. It's over, Petrov! James shouted. Surrender! Petrov's response was another explosion charges planted on the second truck. Under cover of the blast, the biker leader ran for his motorcycle. Chen, the containers! Rescue teams moving in. We've got survivors. James pursued Petrov through the chaos. Behind them, tactical teams secured the scene, freeing victims and arresting Savage Souls members. The Ukrainian diplomats surrendered, hands raised as Coast Guard officers approached. But Petrov had one final card to play. Reaching his bike, he produced a detonator. You want to be a hero, taxi man? Save them! The final truck's engine roared to life, its driver accelerating toward the dock's edge. James could see movement inside more victims, heading for a watery grave. Choice is yours. Petrov kicked his motorcycle to life. Me or them? James didn't hesitate. His shots caught the truck's front tires, sending it into a controlled spin away from the water. As rescue teams converged on the vehicle, Petrov roared into the night, his laughter carrying over the chaos. Container secure, Chen reported. 16 survivors recovered, but James Petrov's getting away. No. James headed for his vehicle, determination in every step. He's leading us to someone bigger. The night wasn't over. Petrov's escape was tactical, not random. After 15 years undercover, James knew when he was being played. Someone wanted him to follow, to climb higher up the conspiracy's ladder. Sarah, track him. Emily, get medical teams ready for the survivors. Chen, right behind you, partner. As James drove into the night, pursuing Petrov's taillights, he knew this was just one battle in a larger war. The real monsters weren't the bikers or even the corrupt officials, they were the shadowy figures who saw human lives as commodities to be harvested. But tonight had proven something important. No matter how high this conspiracy reached, it could bleed. And James Connor, the taxi driver who had seen too much, was just getting started. Rain began to fall as James pursued Petrov through Chicago's empty streets. The biker leader's chrome-skulled chopper weaved through traffic, heading north along Lakeshore Drive. In James's earpiece, Sarah coordinated their pursuit. 3 police units maintaining distance, she reported. Coast Guard has water coverage if he turns east. He won't, James replied, following Petrov's taillights. This isn't an escape, it's an invitation. Chen's voice crackled through. James, those Ukrainian diplomats, they're talking. Global Medical Solutions isn't just a front, it's part of a multinational network. Organ trafficking, weapons, political bribes. Where does the money go? That's the thing, we can't trace it. The accounts vanish into digital black holes. Petrov's bike suddenly veered west, heading toward the financial district. James followed, noting the absence of other Savage Souls members. This was personal now. Sarah, what's in this area? Running building records. Wait. Global Medical Solutions has an office. 47th floor of the Carson Tower. Not running away then. James pressed the accelerator. He's going to his real bosses. Lightning flashed overhead as Petrov led them deeper into the concrete canyon of downtown. The biker leader was riding with one hand, the other pressing his phone to his ear. Intercepting call, Sarah announced. Static cleared to reveal a woman's voice, cultured, aristocratic, speaking perfect English. Is it done? The woman asked. The taxi driver followed me, Petrov replied. Just like you wanted. Good. Bring him up. It's time he learned his place in the bigger picture. The call ended as Petrov pulled into the Carson Tower's underground parking. James stopped at the entrance, weapon ready. Sarah, that voice. Running it through voice recognition now. James, be careful. This feels wrong. When doesn't it? Inside the parking structure, Petrov's bike idled near the elevators. The biker leader stood waiting, hands raised in mock surrender. End of the road, taxi man, he called out. Boss wants to meet you. Your boss or the real one? Petrov's laugh echoed off concrete walls. Smart. Come find out. James approached cautiously, aware of multiple cameras tracking his movement. The warehouse fires, the dock attack all theater. Had to make it look good. Petrov shrugged. Get you emotionally invested. Now you get to see how the world really works. The elevator opened silently. Inside, James noted the sophisticated security systems, the reinforced walls. This was no ordinary office building. 47th floor. Petrov pressed the button. Time to meet the architect. As they ascended, Sarah's voice whispered, "James, that woman's voice matches archived recordings of Catherine Drake." James's blood ran cold. Catherine Drake, former intelligence operative, now believed to run a shadow network of private military contractors and intelligence brokers. "She's supposed to be dead," he sub-vocalized. "Officially, she is. Died in Belgrade 3 years ago. Unofficially." The elevator stopped. Doors opened to reveal a luxurious office suite, walls of glass overlooking nighttime Chicago. Catherine Drake stood at the window, her reflection ghostly in the rain-streaked glass. "Agent Connor," she turned, smiling. "Or do you prefer taxi driver?" "You staged all of this." James stepped forward. "The Savage Souls, the trafficking operation." "A test," she nodded. "One you passed admirably, though poor Isabella did overact her part somewhat." Romano emerged from a side office, no longer wearing prison clothes. "Sorry about the warehouse drama. Had to sell it." James's mind raced, reassessing everything. "The victims in the containers." "Actors," Drake assured him. "Well-paid ones. The real operation is something else entirely." "Why?" "Because, James, we need people like you. People who'll chase justice no matter how high it leads. The trafficking network you uncovered? It's real. But the Savage Souls aren't running it, they're hunting it." Petrov removed his leather jacket, revealing a familiar emblem, private military contractor insignia. "We're the good guys," he said simply. "Just not the official ones." Drake moved to her desk, pressing a button. Screens lit up, showing global operations human trafficking rings being dismantled, corrupt officials arrested, criminal empires falling. "The system is broken, James. Traditional agencies are compromised, bound by politics and bureaucracy. We operate outside those constraints. Vigilantes." James's tone was neutral. "Patriots," Drake corrected. "Working in shadows because the light is too corrupt. Those Ukrainian diplomats, actually intelligence assets helping us track the real traffickers. And now you want me. We want what you want, justice, without limitations. Your cover as a taxi driver is perfect. Your skills are exceptional. Join us and make a real difference." James studied the screens, the evidence of Drake's shadow war against corruption. Part of him understood the temptation to fight evil without rules or oversight. "If I refuse, you return to your life," Drake shrugged. "This meeting never happened. But ask yourself, how many more victims will slip through official channels while you play by rules your enemies ignore?" Lightning illuminated the office as James considered his options. In his ear, Sarah waited silently for his decision. The night had started with a simple act of vengeance against a taxi driver. Now it had evolved into something far more complex, a choice between lawful justice and necessary evil. "Take some time," Drake offered. "Think it over. When you're ready." She handed him a black business card, blank except for a phone number. As James rode the elevator down, his mind churned with possibilities. The world wasn't as simple as he'd believed this morning. Sometimes the real monsters wore badges, while the apparent villains fought secret wars for justice. "Sarah," he finally broke the silence. "Tell Chen to release the Ukrainian diplomats." Quietly. "You're considering their offer?" "No." James stepped into the rainy night. "But now we know who's really pulling the strings. The real work begins." Behind him, the Carson Tower vanished into storm clouds, taking its secrets with it. But James Connor had learned long ago, every shadow operation cast light somewhere. It was time to find that light, no matter where it led. Dawn broke over Chicago as James sat in the Secret Service Operations Center, Drake's black business card on the table before him. Sarah paced while Chen compiled data on multiple screens. Emily studied medical reports from the staged trafficking operation. "It's brilliant," Emily admitted reluctantly, using a fake trafficking ring to infiltrate the real one. The medical protocols were perfect because they've seen the real thing, James finished. They know exactly what they're hunting. Sarah stopped pacing. "We can't trust them. Drake was CIA Black Ops before she supposedly died. She's manipulated events, staged crimes, used us as pawns." "No," James corrected. "She revealed her operation to us. The question is why?" Chen pulled up satellite imagery. "Because of this. While we were chasing Petrov's performance, real trafficking containers were moving through a different port. The screen showed thermal images of refrigerated units being loaded onto ships. Unlike the staged operation at Dock 7, these movements were silent, professional, deadly efficient." "They're using our investigation as cover," Sarah realized. "The real traffickers think law enforcement is focused on the savage souls." James's phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. "Ready to see how deep the rabbit hole goes?" "Drake's making contact already," Chen noted. "She's not wasting time. Because the real operation is happening soon." James studied the satellite feeds. "Everything we saw was rehearsal. Practice for hitting the actual target." Emily highlighted document strings on her screen. "The medical protocols we discovered, they're actually being used at 3 hospitals in the city. Real doctors, real organs, real victims. And real protection," Sarah added. "These hospitals have connections to powerful people. Politicians, judges, people above the law," James finished. "Drake's shadow war makes more sense now. You can't fight this kind of evil through official channels." Chen's computer chirped. "Movement at the hospitals. They're preparing for major surgeries. Multiple operating rooms being readied." "They're expecting merchandise," James stood. "How long until the containers we saw reach their destination?" 3 hours. Sarah checked the tracking data. "But James, if we move against these hospitals, against these people..." "We're not moving against them." James picked up Drake's card. "Not officially." Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes. "You're going to play both sides. Drake wants my help? Fine, but we do this my way." James dialed the number. "We use her resources, her intel, but we maintain control." The phone connected. Drake's cultured voice emerged. "Decision time, Agent Connor? I want to see everything. The real trafficking operation, the protected hospitals, all of it. Meet me in 20 minutes, same place." She paused. "Come alone." James ended the call, turning to his team. "Sarah, coordinate with Chen. I want every piece of data we have on these hospitals. Emily, get me detailed analysis of their organ transplant records." "What's the play?" Chen asked. "We let Drake think she's recruited me. Meanwhile, we build our own case. Official channels may be compromised, but evidence is evidence. If we can document everything..." "We can force their hand," Sarah nodded. "Make it too big to cover up." James checked his weapon, remembering the terror in the eyes of Alexandra Kovac, a terror that, staged or not, reflected real victims' experiences. "Drake thinks she's showing us the truth," he said quietly. "She doesn't realize we're going to use that truth to burn down her whole shadow operation." Sarah touched his arm. "Be careful. Drake didn't get where she is by being naive." "Neither did I." James managed a grim smile. 15 years driving a taxi, watching, learning. Now we use those skills for real. As he headed for the Carson Tower, James's mind raced with possibilities. Drake's organization had resources, intelligence, and the ability to operate outside the law. But they had something else: arrogance. They thought they were the only ones playing a long game. His phone buzzed again, another message. "Bring your taxi. Time to put that cover to real use." "Sarah," he sub-vocalized. "Track every movement. If Drake's showing us the real operation, we'll document everything. she confirmed. Stay safe. The morning sun painted Chicago's towers in gold as James approached the Carson Tower. Somewhere in the city, real victims waited in real containers. Somewhere, corrupt doctors prepared to profit from harvested organs. And somewhere, Catherine Drake thought she was recruiting an ally. She was about to learn that some taxi drivers did more than just observe. Some fought back. And James Connor had been fighting shadows his entire career. Time to bring those shadows into the light. The Carson Tower's underground parking felt different in daylight. James pulled his taxi into the reserved space Drake's message had specified. Petrov waited by the elevators, no longer playing the role of violent biker gang leader. His expensive suit and military posture revealed his true identity: private military contractor, trained killer. She's waiting upstairs. Petrov nodded toward the elevator. But first, we need to make sure you're not wired. James spread his arms, allowing the security check. His real transmitters, custom designed by Sarah, remained undetectable. Petrov's scanner showed clean. Satisfied? For now. Petrov's smile didn't reach his eyes. Ready to see what real evil looks like? The elevator ride was silent. When the doors opened, Drake's office had transformed. Gone were the pristine corporate furnishings, replaced by tactical displays and surveillance feeds. A dozen operators worked at stations, monitoring global communications. Welcome to the real war room. Drake gestured to the screens. What you're seeing is live intel on actual trafficking operations, the ones we're hunting. James studied the displays. Shipping manifests, medical records, financial transactions, all flowing in real time. How deep does this go? All the way to the top. Drake touched a screen, expanding a document. See this authorization? Signed by a federal judge. This one, State Department official. The corruption isn't just criminal, it's institutional. And your shadow operation fights this how? By becoming what we hunt, Petrov explained. We run fake trafficking operations, infiltrate their networks, identify the power players. Then they have accidents, Drake finished. Tragic, unexplainable accidents. James maintained his poker face. Vigilante justice. Justice that works, Drake corrected. While you've been playing taxi driver, we've eliminated 3 major trafficking networks, saved hundreds of lives. By becoming executioners. By doing what's necessary. Drake pulled up new footage. This is happening right now. The screen showed a private hospital wing. Medical staff prepared operating rooms while armed guards patrolled corridors. In a secured ward, James glimpsed patients young, terrified, valuable for their healthy organs. Northside Medical Center, Drake explained. Respected institution, prominent doctors, political protection, and this, she switched feeds. Their supply chain. Refrigerated trucks moved through Chicago's streets, marked as medical transport vehicles. Everything looked legitimate, professional, protected by law. In 3 hours, Drake continued, those trucks deliver their donors for harvest. Unless someone stops them, James finished. Someone operating outside normal channels. Exactly, Drake smiled. Ready to make a real difference? James studied the footage, noting details for later. What's the plan? Simple. You'll drive your taxi, follow designated routes. Our team hits the trucks. You provide mobile surveillance, identify escape routes, spot police response. And the hospital? Leave that to us. Petrov's grin turned predatory. We have something special planned. Drake handed James a secure phone. Everything you need to know is here. Memorize it, then delete. We move in 2 hours. The hospital staff, James had to ask. The guards? Anyone actively participating in organ trafficking dies. Drake's voice was ice. Anyone just following orders lives. We're not monsters, James. We're surgery removing a cancer from society. Back in his taxi, James transmitted everything to Sarah. "Tell me you got all that." "Every word," she confirmed. "James, that hospital Chen's found something. The administrator? He's connected to federal intelligence agencies." "Of course he is." James pulled into traffic. "This goes higher than Drake knows. She thinks she's fighting corruption, but she's actually doing someone else's dirty work," Sarah finished, "cleaning up loose ends for the real players." "Exactly. Her shadow war is just another layer of cover. While she eliminates mid-level operators, the top people stay clean," Chen cut in, "using her justice to protect themselves." James checked Drake's phone, memorizing routes. "Where are the real trucks now?" "Moving north," Sarah reported, "following exactly the pattern Drake showed you. It's all choreographed." "No," James realized. "It's a test. They're watching to see if I pass intel to law enforcement." "So what's the play?" James smiled grimly. "We give Drake what she wants. Let her operation hit those trucks. Meanwhile, we document everything." Sarah understood. "Build a case against the real powers." "Not just document," James corrected. "We let this play out. Let Drake's team get inside that hospital. Then we take them all, corrupt doctors, trafficking rings, and Drake's entire shadow operation." "That's high risk," Chen warned. "If anything goes wrong, it won't." James checked his mirrors, spotting Drake's surveillance teams following him. "Because they think they're using me. Time to show them what a taxi driver really sees in this city." His phone buzzed message from Drake. "1 hour. Don't disappoint me." James deleted the message, thinking of all the real victims in all the real hospitals. Drake's justice was just another form of corruption, another layer of shadow hiding the true evil. But shadows only existed because people looked away. And James Connor had spent 15 years learning to see in the dark. Time to bring everything into the light. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as James positioned his taxi near Northside Medical Center. Drake's plan called for him to maintain mobile surveillance, but his true mission had higher stakes. Through his hidden cameras, he documented everything. "Status on the transport trucks," he sub-vocalized. "4 vehicles approaching from different directions," Sarah responded, "each carrying medical supplies according to their manifests." "And the real cargo?" "Thermal imaging shows multiple heat signatures. They're not even trying to hide it anymore." James watched as hospital security shifted positions, creating clear paths from the loading docks to the secure ward. Everything looked normal, professional, a routine medical delivery. "Drake's team? In position," Chen reported. 12 operators, heavy weapons. They're going to hit hard." "Any word on our federal connection?" Sarah's voice tightened. "Hospital administrator made 3 calls to a blocked number. Signal traces back to..." "Let me guess. Department of Defense?" "Higher. Executive branch." James processed this, watching another security team take position. "This goes straight to the top. Drake thinks she's fighting corruption, but she's actually cleaning house for them," Sarah finished. "Taking out loose ends while the real players stay clean." A message flashed on Drake's secure phone. "Showtime. Stay on station." James watched as the first transport truck approached the loading dock. Hospital staff emerged, efficient and professional. But their movements betrayed military training. These weren't ordinary medical workers. "Sarah, you seeing this? Already running facial recognition. These guys aren't hospital staff. They're private military contractors." "Different company than Drake's?" "Working on it. Got it. Black River Security. They're government contractors," James finished. This just got complicated. The truth clicked into place. The hospital wasn't just trafficking organs, it was a front for something bigger. The harvested organs were just cover for other operations, other secrets. His earpiece crackled. "James," Drake's voice was tense. "Change of plans. Pull around to the emergency entrance, now." As James drove, he spotted Drake's operators moving into position, But something felt wrong. Their movements were too obvious, their positions too exposed. They're walking into a trap, he realized. James, Sarah's urgency cut through. Those Black River contractors, they're not just security. They're a cleaner team. Drake's being played. The whole operation is about to become a bloodbath. James had seconds to decide. If he warned Drake, he'd blow his cover. If he didn't, her entire team would die along with any chance of exposing the true conspiracy. His taxi reached the emergency entrance just as the first shots rang out. Through his windshield, he saw Drake's operators caught in devastating crossfire. Black River teams emerged from multiple positions, their ambush perfectly executed. "Sarah, we need backup, now. Already moving, but James, our federal oversight, just ordered us to stand down." Of course they had. The same people who'd set up Drake's organization were now eliminating it. A perfect operation. Use vigilantes to clean up loose ends, then eliminate the vigilantes themselves. James gunned his engine, driving straight through the ambush zone. His taxi's reinforced frame deflected bullets as he reached Drake's position. She crouched behind a concrete barrier, blood seeping from a shoulder wound. "Get in," he shouted, throwing open the door. Drake stared at him, realization dawning. "You knew. No time. Move." More Black River operators emerged, their weapons chattering. James's taxi took hits as Drake dove inside. Behind them, Petrov and 3 survivors fought a desperate retreat. "Sarah," James called as he accelerated away. "Track those transport trucks. They'll be moving the real evidence now." "Already gone," she reported. "Heading north. Different route." Drake laughed bitterly from the back seat. "I was right about you, James. Just not in the way I expected." "The hospital administrator," James weaved through traffic. "Who does he really work for?" "You don't want to know." "Wrong answer." James took a hard turn, tires squealing. "Your shadow war. It's cover. They used you to clean up their operation, and now they're cleaning you up." Drake's silence spoke volumes. Finally, "The administrator reports to a task force, Project Harvest. They use organ trafficking networks to move other cargo." "What cargo?" More shots rang out as Black River vehicles pursued them. Drake grimaced, pressing her wound. "You ever wonder why certain organs are worth millions? It's not about transplants. It's about what's hidden inside them." James's mind raced. "They're using human organs to smuggle something. Biological samples, weapons research, things that need to stay fresh." The truth was worse than they'd imagined. The trafficking network wasn't just about profit, it was about moving classified materials, using human victims as unwitting couriers. "Sarah," James called as he evaded another pursuer. "We need to stop those trucks, whatever they're carrying." "Working on it. But James, our federal orders just changed. We're now classified as hostile actors." Of course, the same people running Project Harvest were now trying to bury it, and James's taxi had just become the most wanted vehicle in Chicago. Drake checked her weapon. "Your backup's been compromised. My team's mostly dead. Got a plan?" James smiled grimly. "Yeah. We're going to show them why you never underestimate a taxi driver who knows every back alley in Chicago." The chase was on. Somewhere ahead, transport trucks carried horrible secrets. Behind them, government cleaners pursued with lethal intent. And in between, a taxi driver and a wounded vigilante prepared to expose a conspiracy that reached to America's highest offices. The real war was just beginning. Rain pounded Chicago's streets as James's taxi wove through traffic, 2 Black River vehicles in close pursuit. Drake worked her phone in the back seat, reaching out to surviving team members. "Petrov's gone dark," she reported, grimacing at her wound. 3 other teams compromised. They're burning everything." "Not everything," James swerved down an alley. "Those transport trucks, where would they take sensitive materials?" "Private airfield. They'll want to move the samples quickly now that their cover's blown." "Sarah?" James called as he drifted around a corner. "Any planes filing suspicious flight plans?" "Checking. Got it. Private cargo jet, diplomatic clearance, scheduled for takeoff in 40 minutes. Destination classified. James caught Drake's eye in the rearview mirror. That's our target. You don't understand. Drake pressed her shoulder wound. Project Harvest isn't just government black ops. It's multinational. The samples they're moving biological weapons research disguised as organ transplants. Why organs? Perfect cover. Who questions medical transport? And if something goes wrong, if the samples leak? She laughed bitterly. They blame tissue rejection. Meanwhile, they're moving engineered pathogens across borders. Bullets sparked off the taxi's reinforced frame. James recognized the attack pattern professional hit team, not ordinary pursuers. Chen, he called. We need options. Working on it. But James, our federal clearance just got revoked. We're officially rogue. Of course. The same people behind Project Harvest were cutting off their resources, isolating them before the final cleanup. A motorcycle roared alongside Petrov, still alive, still fighting. He signaled toward an upcoming intersection. He's got a plan, Drake straightened. Take the next right. James swung wide, following Petrov's lead. The alley opened into a construction site. Through the rain, he spotted what Petrov had seen: a car carrier trailer, its ramp down. Hold on. The taxi shot up the ramp as Petrov triggered explosives, collapsing scaffolding behind them. Their pursuers slammed to a halt, blocked by falling debris. Nice, James admitted as they emerged on a parallel street. But they'll have coverage at the airfield. Better hurry then. Drake checked her phone's map. 20 minutes until takeoff. Sarah, what have we got? Satellite shows heavy security at the airfield. Multiple teams, professional setup. But James, those transport trucks, they're not heading for the main terminal. Where? Private hangar on the north side. Minimal visibility, restricted access. Perfect spot for a black op, Drake noted. Your people aren't the only ones compromised, James. My entire organization's being systematically eliminated. Not your organization, James corrected as they approached the airfield. You were their cleanup crew. Now they're cleaning up the cleaners. Rain hammered the windshield as they spotted the hangar. 3 transport trucks were already parked inside, their precious cargo being transferred to the waiting cargo jet. How do you want to play this? Drake asked. You still have that evidence from your shadow operations? Documentation of the real trafficking networks? Of course. Insurance policy. Release it. All of it. Show how deep this really goes. Drake's eyes widened. That'll expose everything. The government connections, the black ops. Exactly. They're trying to bury this? Let's make it too big to hide. Her fingers flew over her phone, uploading files to multiple servers. Done, but they'll still try to contain it. No, James smiled grimly. They won't. Because while you were uploading evidence of their crimes, I was broadcasting our location to every law enforcement agency in Illinois. Sarah cut in. Local police, FBI, DEA, they're all converging on the airfield. Too many witnesses to disappear. Through the rain, they could see the cargo jet's engines starting. Project Harvest's operators were rushing now, trying to evacuate before their operation became too public to deny. One problem, Drake pointed out. Those samples they're loading? Still dangerous. If anything breaks containment during a firefight. James gunned the engine. Then we don't let them take off. Sarah, kill the runway lights. Chen, I need that northwest access road clear. On it. But James, multiple armed teams approaching your position. Good. Time to show them why Chicago taxi drivers are the best getaway drivers in the business. His taxi shot forward, accelerating toward the hangar. Inside, figures scattered as the yellow cab burst through the entrance. James power slid between the transport trucks, cutting off access to the cargo jet's loading ramp. Federal agent, he shouted, weapon ready. Everyone down! Chaos erupted as local police cruisers screamed into the hangar from multiple directions. Project Harvest's operators found themselves caught between James's position and dozens of legitimate law enforcement officers. Sarah, get hazmat teams here now. These transport containers need secure containment. Already inbound. James, you just started an international incident. No. He watched as Project Harvest's operators surrendered, their classified operation now too public to disappear. We just ended one. Drake laughed from the back seat, her phone still uploading evidence. Not bad for a taxi driver. Speaking of which, James turned to her. Your shadow operation's finished. Time to face some real justice. She nodded, accepting the inevitable. Worth it, to expose them. But James, this goes higher than you know. The people behind Project Harvest will be exposed, he finished. Every layer, every connection, no more shadows. As federal agents swarmed the hangar, James thought about all the victims who'd suffered under Project Harvest's cover. The trafficking networks, the corrupted officials, the layers of deception, all of it exposed because some bikers made the mistake of attacking the wrong taxi. Sarah, he called as hazmat teams secured the containers. Tell Chen to order breakfast. Something tells me we'll be doing paperwork for days. Worth it? James watched as Project Harvest's operators were led away in handcuffs. Their classified operation now headline news. Yeah, he smiled. Definitely worth it. 1 week after the raid on the private airfield, James sat in the Secret Service Operations Center, watching news coverage spiral outward. Every hour brought new revelations as Drake's uploaded files exposed decades of corruption. 6 cabinet members resigned this morning, Sarah reported, dropping a fresh coffee on his desk. 3 federal judges under investigation. Project Harvest's tentacles reached everywhere. And the samples from the transport trucks? CDC confirmed our worst fears. Weaponized pathogens disguised as transplant tissue. They were using human trafficking victims as unwitting test subjects. Chen entered, carrying thick files. Drake's talking. Everything she knows about shadow operations, government black sites, compromised officials. The whole system's getting cleaned out. What about the real trafficking networks? James asked. The ones Project Harvest was using for cover? Being dismantled as we speak. International task force, legitimate this time. Those hospital administrators, they're facing multiple life sentences. James studied footage from the raid, remembering the moment his taxi crashed through the hangar doors. And Romano? Witness protection, Sarah confirmed. She was another cleanup operative like Drake. They used the savage souls as cover, making them look like ordinary criminals while the real operations continued. Speaking of the souls, Chen pulled up surveillance photos. Petrov's been busy. Turns out he was FBI deep cover the whole time. His biker persona gave him access to criminal networks Project Harvest was exploiting. James smiled. Everyone playing everyone else. And in the middle, a simple taxi driver who saw too much, Sarah finished. The press wants interviews, by the way. You're becoming quite the hero. No interviews. James stood, checking his watch. My shift starts in 20 minutes. Chen looked surprised. You're still driving the taxi? After everything? Best cover in the city, James shrugged. Besides, someone needs to watch the streets. Project Harvest might be exposed, but there are always more shadows. His phone buzzed a message from Drake, now in federal custody. They're calling it the biggest corruption scandal in U.S. history. Not bad for a week's work. Another message followed. But watch your back. Some players still haven't been exposed. They'll want revenge. James deleted both messages, knowing she was right. The past week had shaken America's power structure to its core. Project Harvest's exposure had revealed corruption at every level: military, political, judicial. The cleanup would take years. Any word on our federal building leak? He asked Sarah. Gone dark, but that level of access? Has to be someone high up, someone who survived the initial purge. Keep digging. People like that always leave traces. Outside, Chicago's streets gleamed after morning rain. James's repaired taxi waited, its yellow paint pristine, its hidden equipment upgraded after the raid. The American flag still hung from the mirror, a reminder of why they fought shadows in the first place. Sarah, he paused at the door. Monitor all channels. Project Harvest wasn't the only black operation using criminal networks for cover. There will be others. Already on it. But James, be careful. A lot of powerful people lost everything because of us. They'll want payback. Let them try, he smiled. They still haven't learned the first rule of Chicago streets. What's that? Never underestimate a taxi driver who knows where all the bodies are buried. His first fare of the day was an elderly woman heading to the hospital, a legitimate hospital this time, one not connected to shadow operations. As James drove, he noticed subtle changes in the city. Police presence increased around certain buildings, security teams watching certain corners, the underworld adjusting to new realities. Terrible business, all this corruption in the news, his passenger commented. Makes you wonder who you can trust. That's why we keep watching, James replied, eyes constantly scanning for threats. That's why we never look away. His earpiece crackled Sarah's voice urgent. James, got movement, multiple vehicles tracking your taxi, professional operators. So it was starting already. The survivors of Project Harvest's collapse making their move. James checked his mirrors, noting the unmarked cars maintaining distance. How many? 4 vehicles, 8 operators, heavy weapons. They're not being subtle. James smiled grimly. Good. Time to show them why Chicago taxi drivers are the best survivors in the business. Want backup? No. He turned down an alley, leading his pursuers away from civilian traffic. Time to teach them the same lesson the savage souls learned. Some taxi drivers do more than just give rides. Behind him, engines roared as his hunters moved in for the kill. But James Connor had spent 15 years learning every shortcut, every escape route, every hiding place in Chicago. These people thought they were hunting a simple taxi driver. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The game wasn't over. It was just moving to new shadows, new battlegrounds, new enemies who thought they could operate in darkness. But as James's taxi raced through Chicago's concrete canyons, he knew one thing for certain. The lights were on now, and the shadows had nowhere left to hide. James's taxi shot through narrow alleys as 4 black SUVs pursued, their engines roaring with deadly intent. His elderly passenger gripped her seat, eyes wide. "My dear," she said calmly, "I believe this isn't a normal taxi ride." "No, ma'am." James took another hard turn. "Federal agent. Those people behind us, they're not very happy about some recent arrests." "Project Harvest?" She smiled at his surprised glance. "I watch the news. Former intelligence myself before retirement. Need any help?" "Sarah," James called as he power slid around a corner. "Run facial recognition on my passenger." "Already did?" Sarah's voice held amazement. "Margaret Wells, CIA counterintelligence, retired. She's a legend." Margaret pulled a compact phone from her purse. "Shall I call some old friends?" "Belay that." James spotted an opportunity ahead. "Everyone hold on!" His taxi burst through a construction barrier, leading his pursuers into a half-demolished parking structure. Concrete dust filled the air as support columns crumbled around them. 8 hostiles, Sarah reported. Former special forces, now private contractors. Probably Project Harvest's cleanup team. "Not for long," Margaret typed rapidly on her phone. "Called in some markers, local assets converging on your position." James wove through falling debris, using his taxi's superior maneuverability against the larger SUVs. 2 pursuers crashed, unable to match his precise movements. Down to 6 operators, Sarah updated. But James, more vehicles approaching from the north. Those aren't hostiles, Margaret smiled. Those are old colleagues who owe me favors. 3 unmarked cars cut off the remaining SUVs, forcing them to scatter. Professional operators emerged, weapons ready. The parking structure became a battlefield as Project Harvest's cleanup team found themselves caught between James's taxi and Margaret's reinforcements. Quite the retirement hobby, James commented as gunfire erupted behind them. One never really leaves the game, Margaret replied, especially when corruption goes this deep. Project Harvest was just the surface, you know. How high does it go? Higher than Drake knew. Higher than anyone's admitted. The real players? They're still out there. James's radio crackled. Target vehicle secure, an unknown voice reported. Cleanup team neutralized. Asset wells. Area contained. Thank you, dear, Margaret responded. Full debrief at the usual place. As they emerged from the parking structure, James studied his unexpected ally. You knew they were coming. Of course, been tracking Project Harvest's remnants since the scandal broke. When I spotted their cleanup team in Chicago, I decided to take a taxi ride. Sarah? James called. What's the situation? All hostile vehicles disabled. Margaret's team has 4 prisoners for questioning. But James, there's chatter on secured channels. This was just a test run. Probing our defenses, Margaret nodded. The real strike comes next. Project Harvest's exposure hurt them but didn't destroy them. The organization goes deeper, has other names, other operations. And they want revenge. No. Margaret's voice hardened. They want silence. You exposed one layer of corruption. They can't risk you finding the others. James processed this as he drove toward Margaret's destination, an unmarked office building downtown. Those samples we seized at the airfield, they weren't just weapons research, were they? Evidence, she confirmed. Proof of experiments going back decades, human testing disguised as medical procedures. Project Harvest was just one branch of a much larger tree. And now they're trying to bury everything. Along with anyone who knows the truth. Margaret checked her phone. My team's interrogating the prisoners. We'll know more soon. Why help us? James had to ask. Why come out of retirement? Because some corruptions run too deep to ignore. Because people like you and Drake, despite working different sides, prove that the system can be exposed. And because, she smiled sadly, I helped build some of these shadows long ago. Time to tear them down. At the office building, Margaret's team waited with preliminary reports. James listened as she coordinated with other retired operatives, all drawn back into action by Project Harvest's exposure. Sarah, he sub-vocalized. Background check on everyone here. Already done. They're legitimate. Former intelligence, military, law enforcement, all with clean records and grudges against corruption. A shadow war against shadow operations? Someone has to watch the watchman, Margaret interrupted, having heard his whisper. Project Harvest's collapse created a power vacuum. Other organizations are moving to fill it, unless we stop them. James studied the tactical displays her team had set up. Multiple operations tracked across global maps, all connected to the remnants of Project Harvest. Those transport trucks, he realized, they're still moving cargo. Different routes, different cover stories, same operation. The game never stopped, James. It just changed players. His phone buzzed a message from Drake in custody. They're coming for all of us. Everyone who knows. Watch the shadows. Margaret read the message over his shoulder. She's right. But she's also part of the problem. Everyone thinks they're fighting corruption, but they're all compromised. That's why we need outsiders. People like you. A taxi driver who sees too much. A man who remembers what justice means. Margaret handed him a secure phone. When you're ready to go deeper, call. The real war is just beginning. James pocketed the phone, knowing she was right. Project Harvest's exposure had ripped away one layer of shadows, but others remained. Deeper, darker, more dangerous. Time to bring light to those shadows too. Back at the Secret Service Operations Center, James shared Margaret's intelligence with his team. Photos and documents covered the walls, connecting Project Harvest to other shadow operations. It's not just organ trafficking. Sarah pointed to a map marked with transport routes. These organizations use medical cover for everything: weapons development, human experimentation, black site transfers, and legitimate hospitals as staging points, Chen added. Drake's files exposed 3 networks, but Margaret's intel shows at least 12 more operating globally. Emily studied medical records from seized containers. These aren't just weapons tests. They're targeting specific genetic profiles, collecting data on biological reactions, building something. Building what? James asked. A database of human responses to engineered pathogens. They're using trafficking victims to create a blueprint for biological warfare. Sarah's computer chirped. Movement at O'Hare. 3 private medical flights requested emergency clearance. Manifest shows organ transplant materials. More samples being moved. James checked his weapon. Time to go hunting. Wait. Chen pulled up surveillance footage. Look who's coordinating the transfers. On screen, Isabella Romano walked through the terminal, no longer wearing prison clothes. Her witness protection deal had been a lie, another layer of cover for deeper operations. She played us, Sarah realized. Used Drake's organization as cover while maintaining her real connections. James's phone buzzed Margaret's secure line. Romano spotted. My team's moving to intercept. But James? She's not alone. Through the terminal's cameras, they watched armed security teams take positions. Professional operators, like the ones who'd ambushed Drake's people at the hospital. They're expecting us, James noted. Good. Time they learned about Chicago hospitality. James. Sarah's voice held warning. These aren't savage souls playing gangster. These are trained killers. So am I. He checked his taxi's upgraded systems. And I've got something they don't. What's that? Home field advantage. Nobody knows these streets like a Chicago taxi driver. Margaret's voice crackled through his earpiece as he drove. Romano's operation is bigger than we thought. She's not just moving samples, she's coordinating multiple networks, using Project Harvest's exposure as cover to consolidate power. Making herself indispensable to the real players, James wove through traffic toward O'Hare. While everyone focused on Drake's scandal, Romano positioned herself to take control. Very clever, very dangerous. Airport security cameras showed Romano's team loading specialized containers onto private aircraft. Each box marked as medical transport, each containing horrors disguised as humanitarian aid. Sarah, track those flight plans. Chen, coordinate with Margaret's people. Time to shut down Romano's operation permanently. James, Emily cut in. Those containers, the temperature readings are wrong for organ transport. They're moving something else. Weapons? Worse, live subjects. They're not just shipping samples anymore. They're trafficking people for direct experimentation. The revelation hit hard. Romano wasn't just continuing Project Harvest's work, she was escalating it, using the chaos of recent exposures to expand their operations. Margaret, James called as he approached the airport. Your team in position? Ready on your mark. But James, Romano's got federal protection. Someone's still covering for her. Not for long. His taxi passed airport security using credentials Sarah had arranged. Ahead, Romano's security teams maintained a perimeter around their aircraft. Professional, alert, deadly. Chen, hit the lights. The terminal's power failed, emergency systems casting everything in red light. James's taxi accelerated through the darkness, heading straight for the loading zone. Multiple hostiles, Sarah reported. "Armed response incoming." "Good," James smiled grimly. "Let's show them why Chicago taxi drivers are the most dangerous people in the city." His taxi burst through the security cordon, scattering Romano's operators. Margaret's team struck simultaneously, emerging from concealed positions with surgical precision. "Target acquired," Margaret announced as gunfire erupted. "Romano's running for the plane," James pursued on foot, leaving his taxi as cover for Margaret's operators. Through his earpiece, he heard Sarah coordinating with airport security, ensuring no civilians entered the combat zone. "James," Emily's voice was urgent. "Those containers, they're losing temperature control. If they breach..." "Romano dies or talks," he replied, closing on his target. Her choice. Ahead, Romano reached the plane's stairs, but someone waited in the doorway. Petrov, his FBI cover finally revealed. "End of the line," the former biker leader growled, weapon raised. Romano froze, caught between James and Petrov. Behind them, Margaret's team eliminated the last security operators, securing the containers. "You don't understand," Romano laughed bitterly. "You think exposing Project Harvest hurt them? They wanted it exposed. Now they can rebuild, stronger than ever. Unless what?" Her smile was cold. "Unless someone stops what's coming next. But you're not ready for that truth. None of you are." Emergency lights pulsed red across the airport terminal as James and Petrov held Romano at gunpoint. Behind them, Margaret's team secured the containers while Sarah coordinated with airport security. "What's coming next?" James demanded. "What truth aren't we ready for?" Romano's laugh held no humor. "You think Project Harvest was about organ trafficking? About weapons research? That was just the surface. The real operation." She touched something in her pocket. "Why don't I show you?" "Hands where we can see them," Petrov growled. "Too late." Romano pulled out a phone, pressing a single button. Alarms blared from the secured containers. "Temperature controls failing." Emily's voice was panicked in James's ear. "Containment breaching in all units." "Everyone back!" Margaret ordered as her team retreated from the spreading threat. "Now you'll understand." Romano smiled as hazmat warnings flashed. Project Harvest wasn't building weapons. We were building immunity. Realization hit James hard. The trafficking victims, the organ harvesting, test subjects, Romano confirmed, helping us understand how different genetic profiles react to engineered pathogens, building resistance, preparing for what's coming. "What's coming?" "War," she said simply. "Biological war. And now you've all been exposed." Margaret's team scrambled to contain the breach as Romano pulled out a sealed injector. 15 years of research, hundreds of test subjects, all leading to this. She pressed the injector to her neck. The only working vaccine. "Emily," James called urgently. "What are we dealing with?" "Multiple engineered agents releasing simultaneously. This isn't just one weapon, it's everything they've developed. A cocktail of designed pathogens." Romano backed toward the plane, protected by whatever she'd just injected. The real power players? They've known this was coming. Project Harvest was their solution. Build immunity through controlled exposure, using disposable test subjects. "And now?" Petrov demanded. "Now you've forced their hand. Instead of controlled release, gradual resistance building." She gestured at the leaking containers. "Chaos. Population-level exposure. Survival of the prepared." James's mind raced. "Sarah, containment options?" "CDC teams inbound. But James, if these agents are as engineered as Romano claims..." "They are," Emily confirmed. "These weren't random experiments. They were building specific immunities, creating a biological barrier between chosen survivors and everyone else. Social engineering through controlled plague." Romano reached the plane's stairs. "Elegant, really. The ultimate form of population control." Petrov moved to stop her, but James held him back. "The containers first. We have to contain this." Margaret's voice cut through. "James, my team's got a temporary containment solution, but we need Romano. That vaccine she just took, it's the key to everything." "You'll never take me alive." Romano started up the stairs. "And even if you did, I'm just one piece. The real players are already prepared, already vaccinated, already—" A shot rang out. Romano stumbled, a red flower blooming on her chest. Through the terminal's windows, James spotted a glint of light, a sniper's scope. "Target neutralized," an unknown voice reported through Margaret's channel. "Containment teams moving in." Romano lay on the stairs, blood pooling beneath her, but she was laughing. "You still don't understand. This was always the plan. Create the disease, control the cure. Now," she coughed red, "now it begins for real." James reached her as she pulled out a USB drive. "Everything's here. The networks, the players, the true purpose. But without the vaccine—" Her eyes glazed. "Watch the shadows, taxi driver. The real war is just—" She didn't finish. The USB drive fell from lifeless fingers as CDC teams swarmed the area, establishing containment zones. "Emily?" James called as he secured the drive. "What are we dealing with?" "Preliminary analysis shows designer pathogens, unlike anything we've seen." "But James, Romano was right, these weren't weapons. They were filters." "Filters?" "Population control through controlled exposure. Build immunity in chosen subjects while everyone else succumbs," Margaret finished grimly. "The ultimate form of social engineering." James watched as hazmat teams secured the containers. Somewhere out there, the real players behind Project Harvest were watching, waiting, protected by vaccines developed through years of brutal experimentation. "Sarah," he subvocalized, "get that drive to our best analysts. Chen, coordinate with Margaret's people. We need to find everyone connected to this program." "Already moving," Sarah replied. "But James? Chatter suggests this was planned. Romano's death, the containment breach, someone wanted this exposed." "Why?" "Because now it's too big to hide. Now they can operate in the open, under the guise of emergency response." The implications were staggering. Project Harvest hadn't been exposed, it had evolved, using their investigation as cover to advance its true agenda. "What's our play?" Petrov asked as emergency teams transformed the terminal into a containment zone. James pocketed Romano's drive, mind already forming plans. "We find them, all of them, the ones who thought they could play God with people's lives. They'll be protected," Margaret warned. "Powerful people, powerful organizations." "Good." James headed for his taxi, determination in every step. Time they learned why you never underestimate a Chicago taxi driver who's seen too much. The real war was indeed beginning, but this time they knew what they were fighting, and shadows couldn't hide from someone who'd learned to see in the dark. 3 days after the airport incident, James sat in the secure bunker beneath the Secret Service Operations Center. The USB drive Romano had died protecting displayed its secrets across multiple screens. "It's worse than we thought," Sarah gestured at the data. "Project Harvest wasn't just one program. It was a test run for something called Operation Genesis. Population control through controlled pandemic," Emily added, studying genetic sequences. "Create designer diseases, distribute vaccines only to chosen survivors, reshape society through biological warfare." Chen pulled up surveillance feeds showing similar containers being moved globally. "They're positioning for simultaneous release. Multiple sites, multiple strains." "How many people are we talking about?" James asked, dreading the answer. "Based on vaccine production records?" Emily's voice was grim. "They've prepared doses for less than 1% of the global population." Margaret entered, looking exhausted. My contacts confirm it. Every major power has representatives in the program. They're calling themselves the Genesis Council. Playing God. James studied the list of names. Politicians, military leaders, corporate executives, power brokers who'd decided to reshape humanity according to their vision. James, Sarah called urgently. Movement at multiple airports, private medical flights, same pattern as Romano's operation. They're accelerating the timeline, Margaret realized, using the airport incident as justification for emergency protocols. James's phone buzzed a message from Drake in custody. Check the market. Someone's betting big on pharmaceutical stocks. She's right, Chen confirmed, pulling up financial data. Massive investments in companies connected to vaccine production. They're positioning to profit from the chaos. Where's the command center? James demanded. These people, this Genesis Council, they have to coordinate somewhere. Margaret smiled grimly. That's why I'm here. My team traced their communications to a secure facility outside Chicago, hidden in plain sight as a private medical research center. The Nexus Institute. Sarah brought up satellite imagery. Officially conducting vaccine research. Actually, the heart of Operation Genesis, James finished, where they're planning to reshape the world. Emily studied the facility's blueprints. Heavy security, advanced containment systems. They're prepared for what they're about to release. Because they're already vaccinated, Margaret added. The chosen survivors, protected while they watch the world burn. James checked his weapon, mind racing with possibilities. How long until they launch? Based on their communications? Sarah's fingers flew across keyboards. 24 hours. They're meeting tonight to initiate the final phase. Perfect, James stood. Time to crash their party. It's a fortress, Chen warned. Private military contractors, automated defenses, biological containment protocols. Good thing I've got help. James looked at Margaret. Your team ready? Always. But James, even if we stop them, the samples are already positioned worldwide. The infrastructure is in place. Then we make them release the vaccine formula. Force them to save everyone, not just their chosen few. Drake's voice crackled through secured channels she'd been monitoring their communications. My people are in position globally. Just give the word. Your shadow operators? James asked. Reformed, Drake replied. Amazing how attempted genocide changes perspectives. Sarah pulled up tactical displays. Multiple teams converging on distribution sites, CDC and WHO standing by. But James, I know. He checked his taxi's upgraded systems one final time. Someone has to breach their command center. Someone has to get that vaccine formula. And that someone is a taxi driver. Margaret's smile held respect. Why not? Already ruined their organ trafficking operation. Might as well finish the job. Emergency alerts flashed across screens, containment breaches detected at multiple sites. The Genesis Council was starting early, using their manufactured crisis to justify emergency response. Time to move. James headed for his taxi. Sarah, coordinate with global teams. Chen, get me everything on their security systems. Emily, already mapping the facility's medical sector. The formula has to be in their secure labs. Outside, darkness fell over Chicago as storm clouds gathered. Somewhere in that private facility, the architects of Operation Genesis prepared to reshape humanity according to their vision. They thought themselves gods, choosing who would survive their manufactured apocalypse. But they'd forgotten something important. Gods don't take taxis. And this taxi driver had seen enough shadows to know how to fight in the dark. One more thing, James called as he reached his cab. If this goes wrong, it won't. Sarah's voice was firm. Because you're not alone this time. She was right. Global teams awaited his signal. Margaret's operators stood ready. Even Drake's reformed shadow warriors prepared to strike. All because some bikers had made the mistake of attacking the wrong taxi driver. Time to show the Genesis Council why that mistake would save the world. Lightning split the sky as James's taxi approached the Nexus Institute. Behind its pristine medical research facade, the Genesis Council prepared to launch their vision of controlled apocalypse. Security systems accessed, Sarah reported. You've got a 5-minute window when the backup generators cycle. Teams in position globally, Chen added, standing by to hit every distribution site simultaneously. Remember, Emily's voice was urgent. The formula must be in their central database. Everything else is just backup. James parked his taxi near the facility's service entrance, rain hammering its reinforced frame. Margaret, my people are ready. So are Drake's teams. Just get us that opening. Inside the facility, the Genesis Council gathered in their secure command center. Surveillance showed them celebrating their imminent victory, drinking champagne while monitoring global containment breaches. Power cycling in 3, 2, 1. The facility plunged into darkness. James moved instantly, using skills honed through years of undercover work. Security teams scrambled to respond as alarms blared. Multiple intrusion points. Sarah coordinated the assault. They don't know which one is real. James reached the first security checkpoint, 2 guards down before they could raise weapons. Through his earpiece, he heard similar reports from Margaret's team striking other entrances. Central lab breach detected. A panicked voice echoed through facility channels. Council members relocate to secure bunker immediately. Not happening. James moved deeper into the complex. Sarah? Bunker sealed. They're trapped in the command center, but James' automated defense is activating. Turrets emerged from walls, scanning for targets. But James had studied their patterns, knew their blind spots. His taxi driving had taught him how to navigate tight spaces, find hidden paths. Council initiating emergency protocols, Chen reported. They're trying to trigger early release. Emily, status on the formula? Central database located, but James, they're deleting files. Through security glass, James spotted council members destroying evidence, erasing their tracks while automated systems protected them. Not this time. He triggered Sarah's virus, disrupting their deletion protocols. Margaret, breach the command center. Chen, secure that data. Explosions rocked the facility as Margaret's teams created chaos. Under cover of the assault, James reached the central lab. Inside, the Genesis Council's chief scientist worked frantically at a terminal. Step away, James ordered. The scientist smiled, revealing a familiar face, Isabella Romano's superior, the true architect of Project Harvest. You don't understand, the man said calmly. We're saving humanity from itself. Controlled evolution through design selection. By playing God, choosing who lives and dies. By ensuring the right people survive. The scientist's composure cracked. Look at the world. We're drowning in mediocrity, weakness. Our solution is genocide, James finished. And it ends tonight. Gunfire erupted as security teams breached the lab. But Margaret's operators were faster, more skilled. The room exploded into combat as James fought toward the central terminal. Formula secured, Emily announced. Uploading to CDC now. It's too late, the scientist laughed. Distribution systems activated. The process has begun. James smiled grimly. Check again. Across the world, Drake's teams had already secured distribution sites. The Genesis Council's chosen delivery systems now stood ready to distribute the vaccine instead of the virus. Impossible. The scientist stared at shifting data. Our entire network has been compromised since Romano died. James zip-tied the man's hands. Your own arrogance gave us everything we needed. The command center fell as Margaret's team breached final defenses. Council members found themselves surrounded, their grand vision collapsing. This isn't over, their leader threatened. We have contingencies. No. James accessed their secure files. You have nothing. While you celebrated victory, we dismantled every backup plan every hidden protocol. Sarah's voice confirmed. All sites secured. CDC implementing mass vaccine production. WHO teams distributing globally. You know what your mistake was? James asked the captured council. Thinking you could control everything. Thinking shadows would hide you. And a taxi driver exposed us? Their leader laughed bitterly. No, you exposed yourselves. By believing you were gods, you forgot to watch for devils. Dawn broke over Chicago as emergency teams secured the facility. The Genesis Council's members faced justice, their crimes too massive to hide. Their chosen apocalypse had been averted, replaced by global vaccination efforts. What now? Margaret asked as they watched CDC teams collect evidence. Now? James headed for his taxi. Now we keep watching, keep driving, keep remembering that shadows only exist when people look away. His phone buzzed one final time, Drake's message from custody. Well done, taxi driver. The shadows won't forget you. Good, James replied as he slid behind the wheel. Because I won't forget them either. Chicago's streets awaited, still holding secrets, still hiding dangers. But now they knew sometimes the most dangerous person in those shadows was a simple taxi driver who'd seen too much and refused to look away. Sarah, he called as his taxi merged into morning traffic. What's the next case? Her laugh carried through his earpiece. Already bored? No, he smiled, checking his mirrors for any lingering shadows. Just remembering why we do this. Because sometimes the best way to fight darkness was to drive straight through it, in a yellow taxi with an American flag on the mirror, and Justice riding shotgun. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.